your nice welcome. It's very exciting to be here and to see so many Tea Partiers still on the front lines of battles. You have not gone away, and I thank you very much. Learning and studying so that you can continue your wonderful efforts to return to the foundations that made America an exceptional nation. The NE Tarrant Tea Party has established a goldmine of information on your website. Don Scheib's 10 talking points between now and November are a must-read. The internet links you have provided, such as the one about parental rights, are empowering. And I see that my friend Michael Sullivan of Texans for Fiscal Responsibility will soon be here to tell you how the government spends our money. You are equipping yourselves with powerful weapons in order to sever the bonds that have enslaved us, our children, and our grandchildren with huge amounts of debt. America is in trouble, no doubt. And while excessive government taxation is out of control, we must also address social issues. Yes, social issues. Because they are a huge component of the perceived need to rob us of our hard-earned wages in order to fix many of the social problems in America today. Tonight, I've been asked to talk to you about education, to give you a few highlights of what is going on at the national, state, and local levels. First, I'm going to talk about education at the federal level. While the word education does not appear in the United States Constitution one single time, President Obama has called for a national curriculum through Common Core standards. Has anyone heard about them? Has anyone heard the term race to the top? A few of you, good. Next, I'm going to talk a little bit about what is happening at the state level and some things that will come up during the Texas legislative session beginning next January. And last, I'm going to tell you some things that are happening at the local level. So let's get started. Our president, as I told you, is calling for a national curriculum. That means national standards that will be the same from state to state to state. Why do we need a national curriculum when education should be in the hands of local authorities where school boards are accountable to parents? Are there any parents in the room? Any at all? I hold in my hand a little book called the New England Primer. Has anyone ever heard of it? This is a camera reproduction of the 1777 New England Primer. It was introduced in Boston in the year 1690 by Benjamin Rush, and it was the first textbook printed in America. For 100 years after its introduction, the New England Primer was the beginning textbook for all students. Until 1900, it continued to be a principal text in all types of American schools: public, private, semi-private, home, parochial, and on and on. The founders, as well as most other Americans, learned to read from the New England Primer and the Bible. The 1900 reprint described the impact of the Primer this way, and I quote, "The New England Primer was one of the greatest books ever published. It went through innumerable editions. It reflected in a marvelous way the spirit of the age that produced it. And it contributed perhaps more than any other book except the Bible to the molding of those sturdy generations that gave to America its liberty and its institutions." Let me read a few things from the Primer to you. For the alphabet, the letter A began, "In Adam's fall, we sinned all." The letter B, "Heaven to find, the Bible mind." And the letter C, "Christ crucified, for sinners died." This little book remember, was used in the public schools. Among other things, the primer also contained the Ten Commandments and the Apostles' Creed. There are questions titled Spiritual Milk for American Babes drawn out of the breaths of both testaments for their soul's nourishment. You can purchase a copy of this little book for about $7 at wallbuilders.com. And if any of you watched Glenn Beck, you may have seen the founder of Wall Builders, David Barton, talk about some of the things he has in his organization. Wall Builders is situated right near me in Aledo, Texas, halfway between Fort Worth and Weatherford. They have a wonderful website, and you can purchase all kinds of things there if you have not already visited the website. Today, the Statistical Abstract of the United States reports that we are spending an average of $11,749 per pupil per year. The New York metropolitan area admits to a per pupil average of $18,700, but the true cost is about $26,900 per student per year. This week's issue of Time Magazine's cover story is about the failure of American education. And I have to admit, I have not read the article. I understand that the person who made Al Gore's film, An Inconvenient Truth, did this documentary, so I'm not so sure what it's about, but it is the featured story in Time Magazine. I was at a conference in St. Louis, Missouri this weekend, and I didn't have time to read it after I got home last evening. In Texas, over 50% of first-time college students must take at least one and up to 3 remedial courses in math and reading before they can take college-level courses. That means mom and dad use tax dollars for grades kindergarten through 12. They're going to pay college tuition, but then they have to pay again for remedial courses in college for their kids before they can take college-level courses. If American children learn to read with this little tiny book for 200 years, why does it cost so much money to educate children today? Reading is the gateway to learning, the keys to the kingdom, so to speak. A child who cannot read story problems in arithmetic and mathematics, cannot follow instructions on a standardized test, and cannot read his homework without instructions, let alone complete it. To get an overview of what went wrong, I suggest you read a book called The Deliberate Dumbing Down of America. This was written by a friend named Charlotte Thompson Iserby. She became a whistleblower after working for the U.S. Department of Education as a senior policy advisor during the Reagan administration. A former 30-year elementary school teacher described this book as a psychological lifeboat for teachers who feel trapped on the education Titanic. You can learn more about this book at www.deliberatedumbingdown.com. This book is well documented, and it's not something you read cover to cover, but it's a wonderful reference book. Now let's talk about that proposed national curriculum. President Obama's stimulus package late last year extended the federal government's reach to the local level by offering over $4 billion to the states for a new program called Race to the Top. The federal government has used this money to bribe states to accept even more federal control of public education. Has anyone here sent a child to college? Me too, 2 of them. And when you wrote those checks, was there an accountability for how they could spend the money? You wanted to know how they were spending the money. There were constraints put on it. And that's exactly what happens when the government gives us money. Race to the Top includes developing national standards, increasing charter schools, tying teacher pay to student outcomes and achievement, putting all students into a database, and taking over underachieving